Hey guys, welcome to another video in the Frsky series. Today's topic is setting up your E-Flite BNF plane to your Ethos radio. Now, I'm using my Tandem XE radio, but this process works the same if you've got, like an X20 or an X18, works exactly the same. If it's the Ethos operating system, this is the way that you're going to do it. All right, so first things first, this is using a Spectrum receiver. It's their BNF plane, and it has a Spectrum receiver in it. So you will need, in the back of the radio, I have my my module, my multi-protocol module plugged into the back, and that is the IRX4 Lite module. And I do have a video in this series that shows you how to install and set up that module to work with the radio. So once you have that done, the next step, you just have to go ahead and bind it and do your setup. I'm going to go through that process now. So one of the things to remember is this receiver over here is a Spectrum receiver. And Spectrum, what they do is they say that channel 1 is your throttle, channel 2 is your aileron, channel 3 is your elevator, and channel 4 is your rudder. Frsky uses Futaba style, which is AETR, aileron, elevator, throttle, rudder. So aileron's channel 1, elevator's channel 2, throttle's on channel 3, and rudder's on channel 4. When you bind this receiver to this radio, the multi-protocol module will auto-convert it to AETR. So the receiver itself, you plug it in the way that they want it to. Now, this is a BNF plane. Everything is already pre-plugged in for me. But you'll notice that throttle is on channel 1. You want to leave that. You want to let that, you want to keep that set up the way that it is. And in the radio, when you're doing your mixes, you treat channel 1 as aileron, not throttle. So once it's into the radio, it does the auto convert, and you treat this like a Frsky or a Futaba, where it's AETR. All right. So once that's done, now let's go ahead and go through the process. All right. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to come over here and create a model. So we're going to create a model, and we'll go through the wizard. It's an airplane. That's correct. Now, this particular plane has two engines, okay? But for programming, like when you program it as a one channel, because all the mixing for the two different engines is done in the receiver. It's not done on a transmitter, it's done in the receiver. Generally speaking, if you have, say, a plane that has two ailerons or two engines, and you're going through a flight controller, the flight controller will do the mix, and over here it becomes a regular plane. So I'm going to treat that as one channel. Ailerons, same thing. Whoops. Ailerons has one channel. And flaps, this is where I differ. So the flaps is not going through any of the mixing over there. And what they did was originally in here, they had a Y cable going into channel 6 for flaps. But what I did was I disconnected it from that Y cable, and I made it two separate channels. So I'm going to use channel 6 and channel 7 for my flaps. Tail is traditional, and elevator and rudder, one channel each. That is correct. Okay, so then you create a name. I went forward by one too many, so what you can do is you can go to Edit Model over here, and you can go ahead and add a name there. So let's call this EC, let's go 1500 test. Let's test. Okay, there it goes. And our model is made. So the next thing that we need to do is decide if we want safe select or no safe. And with no safe mode, it'll have its AS3X mode, which is just the wind correction mode, but it won't have safe. I generally don't run safe, but I like to have all options, so I always bind in safe select mode. So let's go ahead and do that. So the way that you choose between no safe and safe select mode is by the process in which you bind it. So we're going to go through the process of binding now. So I'm going to go into here, go into RF system, and it's not internal module, of course, because that would be FrSky. It's external module. I'm going to turn that on, and I'm going to choose the multi-protocol module. So here's multi-module over here, Spectrum. And now, the more I've done this, like I think in one of my videos, I actually said use auto, and I've honestly have not had much luck with auto with this particular setup. When I used to run Radio Master auto was working great. So essentially, these are the different protocols that that Spectrum or E-Flite uses. And the first letter is DSM2. So DSM2 was their old format. And the newer format, so there's DSM2 1F, DSM2 2F. Let's go back there. I hit the button by accident. And the DSMX is their latest format. And generally speaking, DSMX2, which is, I believe, 22 milliseconds instead of 11 milliseconds, is what generally most of their newer planes are. So I'm going to go ahead and try that, DSMX2F. Now I'm going to come down here, and then I'm going to do bind. So before I do bind, I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to activate the plane, but I'm going to choose safe select mode. So the way that you do that, so the first one is plugged into the bind port, is over here, and I'm going to put my bind plug into there. So into the bind port, there's the bind plug. Now I'm going to turn on the plane. Okay, once you turn on the plane, now you disconnect the bind plug. Okay, at this point, I'm going to bind it.
Bind.
Light turned off. Light is back on with a slow flash, which is good. And there we go.
Bind.
So you heard the servos move, and they did a cycle twice. If it doesn't cycle twice, like you heard, that means it is in safe select mode.
Bind.
So that worked, and we are set. So let me just check. I've got my aileron, or my elevator. I got my aileron, and I've got my rudder, and the flaps and everything else I do have to set up. So we're going to go ahead and go through that process. All right. So I'm going to go into my mixer, double check what I have. So if you look over here, channel 1 is aileron, which if this in the receiver, it is actually, ailerons is actually in channel 2. But it did the auto adjustment to make it into like FrSky or Futaba style over here. So just remember, you plug it in the way that Spectrum wants it to do, but in here, you do everything the way that FrSky wants you to, if that makes any sense. Okay, so looks like my ailerons, elevator, throttle, and rudder are all working. I'm going to go ahead and do flaps. So it created a flap, and it arbitrarily assigned channel 5 and 6 as my flaps channels. And if you notice over here, source is blank. So in other words, it doesn't have, what source means is what do you use to control it. So the source I'm using to control it for my flaps is going to be this slider. And I'm going to go ahead and assign that. So let's go ahead and go to flaps over here. Edit it, and instead of channels 5 and 6 over here at the bottom, it says output 1 and 2, so channel count 2. That's 2 channels being used for this flap mix. And output 1 I want to be 6, and do you want to swap the names? Yes. Okay, and channel 6 I want to be channel 7. So output 2 I want to be channel 7. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm assigning flaps to what the way that it is plugged in to the receiver. So the receiver is plugged into channel 6. It was wired into channel 6, and then I disconnected the Y and hooked it up to 7. So that was channel 6 and 7. And if I double check that, actually, first I got to assign an input. And what input I'm going to use? I'm going to use this. There it is. Okay, so there's my flaps. My flaps are working. And it looks like it's the right direction. So I'm going to do, the next thing I need to do before I do a bind, I'm sorry, not a bind, but a safe select, adjusting the safe select, is check my channels are all going the right order. And that'll make sense in a second. Actually, before I'm going to do that, probably one of the first things you should do is turn on Throttle Cut. Because right now, this propeller is right here. and I don't have a throttle cut since this is a new plane. So I'm going to go over here to Throttle Cut, under my throttle mix, active condition, and I want the throttle cut to be on when this switch is in this position. All right, so now I've got throttle cut, and we can see over here under throttle that there's no more line going up. If I go over here, you see the line going up? This means that no matter where I put that throttle stick, it doesn't matter. It's going to be here at the bottom at negative. But as soon as I activate it, then this will work. I'm not going to do it. Okay, so there, my throttle cut is activated. My switch is up. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and double check all my reversing. So I know you guys can't see it, but looks like I got to reverse my ailerons. My elevators look okay, and my rudder. So my aileron and my rudder I got to reverse. So let's go ahead and do that. Oh, I'm sorry, I want to do that out in outputs. There's channel 1 inverted, which is my ailerons, and then my rudder inverted. Now let's double check. That's good, and that's good. My elevator is good. So you need your primary controls to be the right direction, and you need them to be at 100%. So if you're going to do any rates, you could do that after the fact, but right now what I'm concerned about is getting my safe select set up. So safe select needs the direction to be the proper direction, and it needs 100% rates on everything. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and set up safe select. So the way that safe select works is you need to assign a channel first to be onto a switch, and this is actually true for Spectrum as well. I mean, there's no real difference. I mean, you're just emulating a Spectrum, but they do a lot of automatic stuff in there. But let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go over here, go into my mixer, and if I look down my list, it looks like channel 1, 2, 3, 4 are being used. Channel 5, I checked in there, is actually the cargo door is plugged into 5, so I'm not going to do that. So I need channel 8. All right, so let's go ahead and add a mix, free mix, whoops, not first position. I hate that. The knobs always do that to me. I'm going to go ahead and move it. So move, and I'm going to move it down to the bottom. There it goes. All right, now edit that mix. I'm going to label it safe. The source for the safe, so what do I want to be the activator for safe? It's going to be this switch over here for me. Then I go to the bottom, and channel count 1 is correct, and on output 1, I want that to be channel 8. All right, so now I just made channel 8 to be this. So the way that safe select works, or in order to assign safe select to channel 8, what you need to do is you need to take your sticks and put them to the inside corners. And I believe on this I do have to have throttle cut off to do that. It has to register that throttle is down as well. So once you do that, then you select. So you notice I hit the switch a bunch of times, and then all of a sudden the surface has moved. You heard the surface has moved. That means now that I'm in safe select mode. So this switch is now my safe. So it looks like I can see that what I do, the way I check it is I put my elevator up, and where the elevator is lower, that means safe is on, and when the elevator is higher on a switch, that means that safe is off. So I have the switch backwards. So let's go ahead and reverse that switch. So I'm going to go to output, channel 8, and I'm just going to invert it on my output. And now let's double check. There's safe on and there's safe off. That's the way I like it. All right. So that's basically it. But I'm going to go ahead and go through the rest of the setup. But that's it for a basic setup. Now you can do your rates and everything else like you normally do. But I'm going to go ahead and go through it right now really quick. I'll adjust the rates and everything else later. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and set this up like I would like a normal plane. Let's go ahead, you know what, let's go ahead and create that rudder. I'm sorry, not the rudder, the cargo switch. So maybe right after rudder, because it's going to be, I checked on the receiver and the cargo door is plugged into channel 5. So I'm just going to, I like to have my mix list in order. So after rudder, which is channel 4, I'll put this, and I'll call this one cargo. And source will be this switch. And the channel that I want, because I checked it, is channel 5. There it goes. Now I double check. Door is open, door is closed. That seems about right. Looks like it's not hurting the servo, so I don't have to look. It looks like 100% is correct. I don't have to you know, bring down the ends or anything else. So it looks like that's good. Yes. All right, there it goes. So that's it. That's my basic setup. The only thing I would do now is, say, create some mixes if I wanted some mixes. Like I can do some flap stuff. Now, let's go ahead and let's work on flaps. So the first thing I like to do with flaps is adjust the endpoints. So what they do with flaps, I'll take a look over here, is if you create a flap mix, it takes the weight and it makes it only 30%. The reason why they do that is so that if you do bring it all the way up and you know it's getting stuck and that servo is overworking, it won't, you know, like it won't burn your servo out. So I'm going to go ahead and crank this up to 100% and see if the servo gets stuck in any position. I start in the middle, and now I go up and I go down. No, it's not. Looks like it's okay. All right. Oh, and looks like I have to do weight on both sides because it's 2 channels, so I'll make it 100% weight. And just make sure that, you know, it's not getting jammed up at either extreme. Up, down. Yep, looks good to me. Okay. All right. Now you can do a flap to elevator mix if you want. I do have videos to show you how I do that. I'm not going to do that here for now. Let's go into my aileron. Let's go ahead and create my rates. So this is pretty much done. This model's done. The only thing I want to do now is my expo and rate. So let's go ahead and on my ailerons, just add expo. I start off at 30%. Always, and then adjust from there. I may have different weights, expo for different rates, but I start at 30%, see how it feels, and then adjust from there. So I've got my 100% rates over there, and I'm going to use this switch for my rates over here. And I know a lot of people like to do ailerons here, elevator somewhere else, and I just put them all on one, is what I do. That's you know, that's me. Other people do it other ways, and that's fine. It's just, I like to have it all on one switch, and I can generally get a plane to fly, and then I can adjust after the flight and make sure that everything's good. All right, so let's go ahead and make 100% rate. So I'm going to do my mid rate. I'm going to add a weight over here, and we'll do a middle position, and we'll make the mid rate. We'll start off at 80. And then we're going to add a new weight, and we're going to do this switch position in the up, and we're going to make that 70. So this is just a general. You can do, like, you know, like I'll go through, and if the plane actually in the manual has specific rates, I'll adjust it to that usually at first, and then later on I'll adjust it to taste. So you notice I only did it twice. I left the 100%, and it looks like over here. So if this switch, I labeled this myself, it says switch number 4, it's a 3-position switch. In the mid position, that's what the minus is over there. Then do 80%. And then I have the switch position, the same switch in the up position, and that's 70%. And anything, if it's not in any of those positions, then it goes to 100%, which is the top rate. Okay, so that's 100%. There's my 80, and there's my 70. All right, and let's go to elevator. We'll do the same. We'll do a curve. We'll do an expo of 30%. We'll do a weight, 100, add a weight. We'll do the mid position. That will be 80. And I'll look in the book and adjust switches and do like actual ones if I want, later on. But for now, this is just for a demonstration. You can adjust it. You can adjust all the stuff to taste. All right, there it is. So there's my elevator rate and my aileron rate, and my flaps are there, and that's it. So that's a basic setup. One of the things to remember is look in your manual, and the manual, I got the manual here, does talk about what rates that they want in there, and they like for flaps they may have like specific elevator compensation. I wish they actually had the actual values, not just percentages, but they do do that. A lot of times though, like in your manual, so over here, this is the DX guide. So they have a different one for DX, different one for NX, and a different one for IX. And what I prefer to do is I'll look at the DX one to give me sort of like my basic settings. So if you look over here, it does give you high rates 100, Expo 10, low rate 70, Expo 5. So they do give you those rates, and you can go by these if you want, or you can go by whatever you want. The one thing that I wish they did, and I have seen it on some of their other planes, but they don't seem to do it here, is to have a list of what the channels are. So obviously channel 1 for Spectrum is throttle, channel 2 would be aileron, channel 3 is elevator, channel 4 is rudder. What's not really apparent unless you actually go in there and check the wires out is channel 5 is the cargo, in this particular plane, the EC 1500, and channel 6 is the flaps. And then what I did was I separated the flaps so I can do full span ailerons and everything else. So I'll set those mix-ups later, but this is just a basic setup, and I wanted people to understand how to set up a Spectrum plane for the receiver. Remember, you do have to assign safe to a channel, but before you do that, you do have to pick a channel. So pick a channel, like in this particular case, I knew that channel 8 wasn't being used. I go to channel 8, and I create a mix on channel 8, at a very basic mix with a switch. And then at the output over here is channel 8. And that's it. And then once you do that, what you do in order to then tell the receiver, the Spectrum receiver, that channel 8 is going to be safe is, again, with the surfaces at 100%, with aileron, elevator, all the stuff at 100%, and the servo reversing correct, you put these into the inside corners, and then you activate the switch a bunch of times until you hear the surfaces move. Once you did that, then it works, and then now I have safe. So that's basically it. If there's any questions, please go ahead and comment in the video, or if there's anything more in depth that you need, you can definitely email me at all.rc.air@gmail.com. And I usually get back to you pretty quick. Sometimes I do miss, it's not my main email account, but I do try to look at that email and respond back. That's it. If you guys have any questions, well, let me know. If this proves useful to you, please like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. It does help the channel out. I appreciate it, guys. Take care. Have a good night.